Hey you guys, today we're gonna make an acorn squash soup with apples and we're gonna have some pork with it. Really nice fall dish. Great thing for you to make for the holidays. You know, October, November around here, this is like the time for squash, for pumpkin, and you can sub anything out with this. So stay with me, click subscribe if you're not doing that already. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video and ring that bell and I'll send you new stuff I have coming up. So I'll see you back in a second. Okay guys, what we're gonna do first is get this kind of soup started, okay? So we're making a soup today with acorn squash. Use beautiful acorn squash like this. You could use any pumpkin you like. I like more flavorful pumpkins like red curry is a really cool pumpkin. You can get kabocha, which is like a Japanese pumpkin. They have density in them of the meat and it gives them more flavor versus kind of like a regular old jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. Sometimes they're watery. So sometimes I like to go with butternut squash or things like that. Really nice quality ones, organic if you can find them, are the best. So first we're going to start with our aromatic vegetables. So what I'm going to do first is put a little bit of butter into a hot pot like this. And I'm going to let that melt down. Okay, so I've stuck that in there. We're going to let that melt. And then I'm going to also put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in there as well. I love that flavor with pumpkin. And then we're going to get a couple of our vegetables like our celery and our onion we're gonna want to cook first. Now, while we're waiting though, I've got 4 garlic cloves. Can you see those? You know, and I'm just gonna smash those like that. I want the oil to kind of come out and I want to toast my oil with this. This is kind of how I like to use garlic a lot. Rather than just put tons of garlic into something, I like to take it and infuse the flavor with this butter, with this oil and this garlic together. So you can see this pan's getting nice and warm and the garlic is going to sit in there and fry kind of in this butter and this olive oil. We're going to let that cook for a second. While we do that, I've got a whole onion here. So the onion, I'm just going to cut it in half. Okay. And because we're pureeing this soup, we don't really need to worry about cutting it perfect. So I'm just going to do slices. So I'm going to do some sliced onions and diced celery. I add apple for sweetness. It's gonna be nice as well. The kind of beautiful fall flavor of a crisp apple. Now, when I do this, you want to keep moving kind of the garlic around in here and kind of perfume this butter and oil with that. Okay, those garlic chunks are gonna get pureed up anyway, so we don't have to worry about those. And what I'm gonna do at this point as well, I want to toast some spices. So I've got a little bit of Madras curry, okay? And I'm only going to put like a teaspoon in there, okay? So we're not going to go heavy on the curry flavor. We just want to put it light, like get people guess a little what's in there. And then I've got this is a kind of a spicy chili that I have, a dry chili that a friend gave me. But your equivalent at home is going to be like a cayenne. So you want to put like just a little pinch of cayenne in there, however spicy you like. If you don't like it spicy, then don't worry about putting the cayenne. So at this point, once those toast a little, I'm going to throw in my onions. And then I want to smash those down. Now your spices will burn quickly. So what you want to do is make sure that you add in your onions quickly and toss them around. As your onions start to kind of break down a little, that water that they give off is going to help to kind of steam and keep the curry from burning. Okay? Again, on this too, if you don't like curry, some people just don't like the flavor of curry, leave it out. If you like other flavors, you could put powdered ginger in, would be really nice, or turmeric, very healthy for you. Especially during these times in the fall when a lot of people get the flu and they get sick because they're not used to, or it's just a change of the weather, I think. So, you know, if you want something kind of to boost your immune system, a little ginger in there would be great. We're gonna let that cook for a second and we're gonna get our celery ready. So here I've got probably a half of a bunch. I used about half of the outer leaves of it. So we're gonna use a half a bunch of celery. So 1 onion, a half a bunch of celery, and they're gonna be diced. We don't have to go perfect with it. You can see I'm just cutting this straight down like this. and we look good, right? So I'm going to put that in here as well. Okay. And let this saute. While I saute this, the next piece is going to be the pumpkin. Our squash. Same. Hard squash, pumpkin, same difference. Now, would you normally roast this? You can. And the reason I'm showing you not roasting it is because I know a lot of you are going to get home, you want to make a soup, but you don't want to roast the pumpkin first and scoop it out. Now, if you're really organized, you can take the pumpkin, cut it in half, right? Lay it flat on a cookie sheet, bake it in the oven at 350 with a little butter inside the cavity after you've scooped out the seeds that are in there. And once it's been roasted, then you just scoop it out and you put it in here. It doesn't need as long to cook. But if you don't want to, if you're not ahead of the game like that, say no, what I want to do at this point, I'm going to deglaze this with just a touch of water. Only because my onions aren't giving enough water off yet to kind of cook this or keep the curry from burning. That's one of the things you want to watch for, right? And that's all depending on how fast your onions are letting out water, right? If they let out water quick, then they're fine. But if they don't, you could sit there and burn that dry curry powder in the bottom of the pan before the onions let it out. So what I do is put a little bit of water in there like that, just a couple tablespoons of water. And that's going to disappear too, but it's going to give those onions and celery a chance to cook for a second. Let their juice and their flavors come out into this, okay? So today we're not going to pre-roast this, and we're just going to slice it, okay? Is it going to change the flavor dynamic tremendously? Not tremendously. I think sometimes roasting it ahead of time is better. I do like that better. It gives the pumpkin a little different flavor, but it's not tremendous. Normally when I roast it, I do roast it with a little bit of, usually I put a little bit of maple syrup on it to get a little like kind of a golden roast to it. Okay, after we've chopped that pumpkin up, we're going to put that in here like this. Incorporate this into our soup, right? Sweat it down a little bit. We really wanted the onions and the celery to kind of sweat down and let their flavor release. But I've got some apple here, apple pieces here. It's just one apple. And I'm just basically cut it around the center stem, and then I'm like dicing the outside pieces. Skin on, it doesn't matter. I really like it. We're going to puree it up anyway. I think that skin gives it a little bit of nice flavor. Okay? And I'm going to dice this up. Now I'm going to see too, let me check out some wine. I think I have some wine in the fridge. Okay, I had a little bit of extra Riesling wine, which actually works perfect with these fall dishes. I'm putting 1 cup of Riesling wine in there, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and stir that in. Now, why do I use Riesling? Riesling is going to be like this kind of little bit of fruity sweetness, really nice with apple, with pork, with onions, all of these kind of fall flavors. It does really well with, okay? I actually like cooking with Riesling more than I like eating it myself or drinking it myself, because it is too sweet for me just to drink. I like a drier white wine to drink, but for sauces, it makes an amazing cream sauce with chicken and Riesling too. Is amazing. You have to try that. I'll have to do that recipe. I have to remind myself. So with this, what we want to do now is let that wine cook down for a second, and as that cooks, we're going to add a little salt. So at this point, I'm going to add a tablespoon of salt. Okay, and then I'm going to add, oops, forgot my pepper. There we go. So I need my pepper. So we're going to put some ground pepper in here. We're going to go a little bit heavy on it. Not too heavy, because I do have my chilies in there, right? My cayenne that I have, my fresh cayenne. So I don't want to go too heavy on the pepper on that. Okay, now this kind of wine is cooking out. Once that's kind of cooked down like it has there, I want to add water. And now with the water, we're going to add enough water to cover. These vegetables are going to let water out. And boom, I'm done. Okay, so with this, I'm looking to let this beautiful soup come together. Now that soup to come together at this point is going to probably take about about 40 minutes, 50 minutes of cooking, simmering. There's nothing in there that really needs to break down longer than that. The pumpkin's gonna be cooked. We want the apples to cook down. We want, there's onions and celery to kind of perfume this whole thing. And at that point, we'll go ahead and finish this up. We're gonna puree it, and I'll show you what we're gonna do after. So we'll let this cook for about 40 minutes, and then I'll see you back in the kitchen. Okay, we're back now with the secondary part of this is gonna be our garnish. Now, we're gonna let this soup cook, and while that's cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and make this. Normally, I would make the soup ahead of time and have the soup done, and then right before dinner, I would add this kind of pork garnish to the soup. Now, if you wanted to add pork into the soup, you could cook the soup with kind of pork shoulder, and then pull the pork shoulder out, separate it, and then add chunks of that in later instead of this pork loin. But I'm gonna make this nice clean pork loin like this. So what I'm doing is getting my pan hot, and I'm gonna put my oil in here. With this, I'm gonna use a grapeseed oil, and I'm gonna sprinkle salt over these thin pieces of pork loin, as you can see. Super lean. They're gonna cook ultra quick, right? And I think a lot of people like pork loin like this because it does cook quick and it's tender. So you don't have to let it, you know, go for a long time, right? And I'm gonna put a little bit of pepper on that. Okay. Okay, like that. Beautiful. All right, now I'm gonna put these in here. You can hear that going, right? They're gonna cook quick, and which is fine. We wanna cook them fast. Beautiful. Okay, perfect. Now we're gonna let those cook. I wanna clean my hand off really quick. And I'm gonna have, I've got some mushrooms here. These are just white button mushrooms. These are simply sliced, or you can buy them sliced like this. I always get them whole. They're a little cheaper and then slice them myself. Then I've got some parsley. You can see this beautiful parsley, okay? So the parsley, what I want to do is I want to slice the parsley. I'm probably going to need about half of this, okay? And I want to go heavy with the parsley. Parsley's a really nice garnish with pork, and it's really nice in soup like this pumpkin soup. Incredible. And you can notice that I'm not cutting it ultra small, right? I'm cutting it, leaving it kind of thick like that. So it's kind of almost like a leafy green in there, which is what I'm looking to do. Now, with this pork, I'm looking to get a nice, beautiful sear on it like this. Flip it over. Okay, perfect. And that's great. Now what I'm going to do is squeeze them to the side like this a little bit. And while they're on the side, I'm going to throw my mushrooms in. Okay, and I can stack my mushrooms up until I'm ready to pull my pork out. That's fine. Okay. I'm gonna let this cook for about another few seconds, and I want to get some Marsala wine to deglaze it. So I'm back. I've got my Marsala wine. If you don't want to use the wine, you don't have to. But I kind of like a beautiful wine in this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put these pork pieces in my dish here because they're done. The pork loin like that cooks very fast, and the residual heat from the pork sitting here like this is going to be good enough to cook that, okay? You can see my pan, it's starting to get dark, right? This is why we want to deglaze, because otherwise it's going to burn. So I'm going to put a nice quarter cup of that Marsala wine in there, and I'm going to let that deglaze with the pork. So that nice caramelized pork cooking in there created that little crisp on the pan. At this point, I'm going to put my Marsala wine in there like this and let that cook down. And after this cooks for a little bit, we are going to put a little bit of, we're going to let this pork rest. What I'm going to do is dice my pork up, and I'm going to put it back in here. And that's why I'm saying the pork doesn't need to be cooked anymore, because we're gonna, not only are we gonna dice it, we're gonna actually put it back in here when this is warm. And we're gonna finish this dish off. Now, I'm probably not gonna salt it yet. I actually will take a taste of this right now and see what the seasoning's like, because what you're trying to figure out, how much salt from the pork when it was sauteing kind of penetrated with the mushrooms here. And it's not a lot, so it looks like it's gonna probably need a little bit, which is fine. That's where I want it to be. But it's almost ready. So these mushrooms, let me let these cook for about 3 to 4 minutes, and we'll be back after. Okay guys, we're back now after this is cooked for a few minutes. There's a couple things I want to add to it. I want to add a little bit of spicy mustard. This is also very Oktoberfesty, right? Is to add this really kind of spicy German mustard to this. The flavors of the spicy from that with the apple, all those flavors together are beautiful. So I'm just going to kind of spring that in there like that, okay? Let this finish to reduce. You can see how this wine has almost reduced out. The mushrooms themselves have given a lot of juice to this dish, and it's continued to cook down. At that point, I'm gonna add a little heavy cream into it, okay? Like that. Okay, now at this point, we have this beautiful, creamy, mustardy, marsala mushroom kind of sauce, right? It's gonna be beautiful. And to finish it off, after we let this cook down, we're gonna add our pork into that. Now, because this pork is with a soup, I'm gonna dice it up. So let me show you what that looks like. So we've got our pork here. It's been cooked, right? And I wanna just dice it into spoon-sized pieces. So that, I mean, for you guys, that's really up to you guys how you do that. Now, if you look at the center of this pork, it's cooked perfect. Oh God, it's fantastic. So what does that mean? It's a loin. It means it doesn't need to be cooked any longer. So to keep it from getting tough, you're gonna wanna keep it from being like hot anymore. I mean, you wanna keep it hot when we cook, when we eat this, but what I'm saying is you don't wanna simmer this for another 20 minutes or 30 minutes, right? This is not like a shoulder cut, something that's got fat, something that's gonna break down over time, right? This is something meant to be eaten now when it's just barely cooked through. And so what we wanna do is leave this pork here at room temperature in its juice like this until we're ready to have our soup for dinner, okay? And then we'll show you how to finish this. So let me dice this last one here, like this. And we're gonna wait to put our parsley in as we get closer towards the end. And our pork is ready to go into the sauce. The sauce has probably got to come down just a little bit more before it's completely done. And we're gonna finish this up, and we're gonna get that soup finished, and we're gonna eat this. So I'll see you back in a second. Okay, I diced up the pork and stuck this in with the mushrooms, and I put the parsley in there. While it was warm, you can see just the residual heat from everything. It's kind of wilted it down. That's ready for us to eat now. Now, let's finish this soup up. So to finish this soup, the soup's really cooked down. You can see how beautiful and rich it looks. All the vegetables have really let out all their liquid, have softened up, given this soup its life. And at this point, we're gonna finish it off with some heavy cream, okay? It's probably I'm putting about a half a cup of heavy cream in there. You could go with as much as you want. There's not a specific recipe for heavy cream in a soup like this. You could go with no dairy at all. Like a lot of times I make this soup, it'll be vegan. So what I would do is make this vegan. I might have this with friends, and then if they don't want the pork part, they don't have the pork part, but it's not actually in the soup. So this way you're gonna make everybody happy, right? So at this point, I wanna let this come back to a boil, okay? And as soon as this comes back to boil, well, it's already coming back to a boil because it goes quick. I don't cook the cream for a long time with it. It kind of breaks the cream up and breaks it down. And I prefer to have this kind of fresh, creamy taste at the end like this, right? So I'm pretty much done at this point. Now, I want to taste it and make sure I'm happy with it. Tasting, now I'm not going to get the full flavor of the soup because I haven't pureed the vegetables in it. I haven't pureed the pumpkin in it, right? I haven't pureed the apple. We've just got a little bit of their flavor. So what I'm tasting for is salt. So I think it needs just a touch more. It's got enough spice, okay? And it has enough pepperiness to it. So I think at this point it's really done. So right now I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And I'm going to go ahead and puree it. Now, one of the things I want to grab is some maple syrup. Okay, so here I have some real maple syrup, not fake, okay, and I want to put in probably a couple tablespoons of maple syrup. My apples, yes, are sweet, but they're not ultra sweet, not super sweet. And the maple syrup is really going to give that pumpkin that fall flavor that really people look for when they're having a pumpkin soup. So I'm going to take my chunky onions, celery, pumpkin, and put it in my blender. Now you could use any kind of blender that you have at home, hand blender. Hand blenders don't kind of puree as smooth. Like this kind of Vitaprep blender is going to blend super smooth. It's just got a high-powered motor. I never fill it all the way up. I do it halfway. At this point, I'm going to puree it, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, I've pureed the last piece. It took two batches in the blender, and I'm going to add this all together. Why do you do that? It's important to do that. Don't separate the soups. Don't separate the soup without mixing it all together first, because you could mix and match it. You might get more pumpkin in one and less in another. So you have to blend it all together, put it back in here, and at this point, you have this beautiful soup. At this time, we're going to taste it. Now it's got the balance of everything. It's got the sweetness. It's got the pumpkin in there. We've got everything coming together. Okay, and gosh, I think it's just really, it's right on the money. So what I'm going to do to plate this up is take myself a really nice bowl here and put a couple ladles of that soup in there. And then we're going to take our pork that we just diced up with our mushrooms, right? And we're going to put it right in the center. This is going to give us that chunky soup feel, but it's also, the pureed part of the soup is going to make it very velvety. So it just really makes for a beautiful soup. And then let's finish it with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil like that and cracked pepper. Perfect. Okay, so super simple dish. You guys got to try this at home. If you have any questions, please leave me comments and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, so wonderful pumpkin, well, acorn squash apple soup to be exact, with pork and mushrooms and Madeira, and it's lovely, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoyed spending time in the kitchen with me. I always have fun with it, and I'll see you back soon. I'm Chef Dean Max.